Immediately after, Jesus calms the storm, which prompts his awe-stricken disciples to ask, "Who then is this, that he commands even the wind and the water, and they obey him?" Immediately after this story, the disciples and Jesus, they sail to the region of Gerasene across the Sea of Galilee, and that's where our story picks up today. From the sounds of the story, it's like immediately after they are off the boat, they are confronted by a demon-possessed man. Naked and so overcome by violent impulses, this man cannot be restrained even with chains and leg shackles. And as a result, he is excluded from the city and is living there amongst the tombs. He shows all the signs that the ancients used to diagnose possession by an unclean spirit. And when he sees Jesus, he recognizes him and demands to know what there is between them. Why is Jesus suddenly there? What does Jesus, the Son of the Most High God, have to do with him? And then he begs Jesus not to torture him. Is it the man talking? Is it the demons talking? The man himself may not know the difference, may not know where his identity ends and where his possession begins. But what is clear is that Jesus will not allow the unclean spirits to keep on tormenting this man. Already, even before the man addresses him, Jesus has commanded them to leave. And now Jesus asks the man's name. But it is the demons who reply. "Legion," they say, "for we are many." Now, gospel stories of demon possession, they are difficult to preach because we don't experience demons as described in the Bible. However, all the demons that Jesus confronts, they all have three things in common. They cause self-destructive behavior in the victim. The victim feels trapped by their condition. And then they separate the victim from normal living within their family circle. Does that sound familiar? Don't many of us suffer from the same kinds of snares and burdens? Self-destructive behavior, feeling trapped in the condition, and the condition separates us from normal life, from normal living conditions, from family and friends. So if we define demons as those forces which have captured us and prevent us from becoming what God intends us to be, we are as surrounded by, we are as possessed by, as many demons as those whom Jesus encountered. Except our demons are given different names. Mental illness, schizophrenia, paranoia, addictions, obsessions, destructive habits. The list goes on and on. So let's think about the similarities between this demon-possessed man and the demons that possess us. Right? He's totally cut off from family and society. He didn't live as people live, but he lives in the tombs, probably in caves that were used as burying places. He was also driven by the demons into the wilds. In other words, he was already in a living death, separated from normal people and normal living. And furthermore, the demons were harming him. In Mark's version of this story, found in chapter 5 of the Gospel of Mark, he was bruising himself with stones. And we hear in our passage today that no one could restrain him, not even chains and leg shackles. The point of this story, as well as all of the other demon-healing stories in the Gospels, is that the power of God can cast out demons. The 70 followers that are sent out by Jesus soon after this story, they come back after their time amongst people and report, no doubt with astonishment, "Lord, in your name even the demons submit to us." One of the keys to success for the organization Alcoholics Anonymous and for all the other anonymous 12-step programs that have evolved out of it, they all share 12 steps to healing. And these steps begin with the first 3. We admitted we were powerless over our addictions and that our lives had become unmanageable. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And number 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God or this higher power as we understand it. Now, members of anonymous programs, they also realize that they not only need God's help, but they need the support, the help of the people around them. That's why they go to meetings. That's why they seek the support of family members and friends and sponsors. In almost all of Jesus' stories of healing, there is restoration to the families and to their society. For the healing of demons today, it requires the fellowship of family, of congregation, of community. It's the key to restoration. Becoming free from our demons is seldom a do-it-by-yourself kind of project. We need help. We need God's help, and we need the help of family, friends, and community. All this is happening in this story and in our stories. As a minister, as a fire chaplain, and now as a psychotherapist, I am privileged to hear many of these stories and to sometimes participate in the healing. Like Legion in our story today, most of us live in fear of healing too. We want to be better, and yet we fear the work, we fear the process of getting better. We are afraid of what perhaps we will learn about ourselves. We are afraid of perhaps what we will learn about other people. And we are afraid of the unknown. We are afraid of the outcome at the end of our work, at the end of the process. How does the saying go? Better the devil you know than the devil you don't. As a psychotherapist, most of my clients, they've made that first step themselves. They have stepped out in faith and decided that they want to start the work of healing, and they are asking for help. It's a courageous thing to do, take that first step, and then continue. I've been working with one client now for over 2 years, and we've had over 50 therapy sessions in that time, and we still have a long way to go. They are struggling with something called differential identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. It differs from schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder in that multiple voices are just that. In schizophrenia, they are figments of the imagination. They are voices or hallucinations. While differential identity disorder has multiple personalities. These personalities are all part of the actual person, or the host, as we call them. You can think of it like a mirror, right? When we look at our reflection in the mirror, we see ourselves, we see one person. But when that mirror gets shattered, right, when it cracks into multiple pieces, we see multiple images of ourselves. In differential identity disorder, the mirror, our personality, it gets shattered during early childhood by either one very traumatic event, but usually one ongoing trauma. Things like abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, something that is ongoing. And the child in the midst of that is not capable of understanding or dealing with the trauma. And so their personality shatters like that mirror into multiple reflections of themselves, different aspects. And we call them alters. And these alters, they perform different tasks to protect the child, each one independent of the other, of the host. One alter is usually the holder of all of the trauma. One alter is the protector and handles confrontation or fight or flight. Another alter remains that small child, that innocent, naive child. And there can be many more alters than that, but each one has a purpose and each one is separate from the other. And so when the person reaches adulthood, these personalities that splintered off in childhood, they are often hidden or they have become latent. They are there in the background, below the surface. But when that same adult experiences a new trauma as an adult, it could be anything traumatic, from a car accident to sudden loss and grief, to more abuse or violence. But when that is triggered, the system reacts. It goes back to what it knew as a child, what worked. And so these altars reemerge to protect them once again as an adult. And yet it becomes very difficult to function as an adult. It becomes difficult to hide. It becomes difficult to understand. There are blank periods where an altar comes out and the host, when the host reemerges, they have no recollection of where that time has gone and what has been done. And as you work with this type of client, you realize that they have no knowledge or memory of the trauma that started it all as a child. Only the altar within them that holds the trauma has that knowledge. So as you can imagine, this is a long and difficult process. It's a lot of hard work for both the client and the therapist. And it can only be accomplished slowly and with a great deal of hard work and trust. I wish I could cast it out instantly like Jesus does in our story today. But we know that as humans, anything that is worthwhile takes time and effort and courage. And it always takes the support of the people around us, of our family, of our friends, of our community. In fact, one of the things that I work on with every client is helping them identify and build their support community. From the moment that Legion first confronts Jesus, this whole story invites us to consider what Jesus has to do with the forces that occupy us, that control us. And so this way of reading the story, it neither denies the possibility of demon possession nor diminishes the miraculous healing that occurs here. Instead, it challenges us to think more broadly about Jesus' sovereignty, about his power over those things that can destroy human life and human society. How many people in our world are haunted by a traumatic past and tortured by those memories? How many live unsheltered and inadequately clothed because of social and economic forces that they cannot overcome, no matter how hard they struggle? How many are imprisoned and regarded as barely human, excluded, cast out? How many are enslaved by addictions, no longer knowing where their addiction ends and their own selves begin? Where do the governing authorities separate people from their families, denying them the opportunity to seek better lives? And where do occupying armies still brutalize entire communities or countries and hold them captive with fear? Friends, Jesus comes to challenge and cast out every power that prevents us from living fully and freely as human beings created in God's image. Jesus claims sovereignty not just over our souls, but over our lives here on earth. Now, many among us, we resist that news. Finding deliverance from Legion is just too frightening. It is too demanding. It is too costly. But those whom Jesus has healed and freed, they know that his liberating love is indeed good news, that the gospel that he commands to us is to be proclaimed throughout our cities and our towns. Friends, God is still at work today, working through the power of Christ, working through you and working through me, bringing God's kingdom into existence here on earth as it is in heaven. becoming whole and free. It's not easy, and it's not without discomfort. And the most demanding aspect of it may be overcoming our own fear, or the fears that our community, our society projects upon us. But that, my friends, is the work of incarnation, the work of passion, the work of resurrection. It is the hope of salvation. It is the promise of recreation. It is our purpose. It is our journey. It is our truth. Go and do likewise, and declare it to the ends of the earth. Amen. Our hymn is number 729, Silence, Frenzied, Unclean Spirit.